we take a look at what they have, they've got at the beginning of the onset of this conflict, going back to earlier this weekend, they had about, as we're looking at here, these range missiles. The short range missiles here, which would hit the Gulf states, we probably had something along the lines of 6,000 to 8,000 of those, and probably 2 to 3,000 medium range ballistic missiles, which are capable of striking Israel.
Right. And what about their decision to strike these neighboring states? I mean, we've seen attacks in Bahrain, UAE. These are major, economic
Yeah,
hubs in the region. Why did they decide to do that?
it was I believe, a foolish strategy because it looks like it's backfiring. In the beginning, they were originally only targeting U.S. bases and strategic air bases in a few countries, as well as our naval headquarters in the area. But then they pivoted, as you mentioned, to these civilian infrastructure targets, largely in the Gulf. So if we're looking at it over here, so if we're looking at Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, who's closed their airspace, they said we couldn't use the airspace, couldn't use the bases, and they were trying to put pressure on the U.S. government by basically pressuring the Gulf states through strikes. That appears to be backfiring. They now are potentially going to get involved in some form or another, and it also provided both legal and political cover and pretext for the Europeans who didn't want to be involved as well, because they also took shots at the Royal Air Force Base in Cyprus at Akrotiri. And now we saw the Greeks deploy 2 frigates, F-16 fighter jets to defend. The French are going to send an aircraft carrier, and the British said that they may open up their bases. So this appears to be backfiring.
So far, it's been defensive, but it could change.
Absolutely.
So President Trump has said that there's more to come, and that, in fact, maybe more intense strikes to come. But we're also learning that the United States did not target Iran's nuclear facilities. Why not? And could those be next?
Absolutely, they probably are, and that's because in the beginning they took out the leadership targets, which were intelligence-driven human beings that could go underground. So you hit those first, and then they want to strike as many ballistic missiles and drones as they could to prevent counterattacks on U.S. forces. And then there were also a couple of attacks on some of the affiliates, the militias in Iraq, and then Israel has also been hammering Hezbollah, who decided to open up some missiles. Once you get those and you limit the ability to counterattack against U.S. forces, you take out the leadership. Now you go to fixed targets. Mountains don't move, facilities don't move. So now the nuke targets are up next. But in addition to that, I also think they may get back to trying to hit more of these missiles because they've been tearing up the GCC countries.
But how many military sites are left after last year's attacks that were supposed to have degraded their nuclear capabilities?
So there were 3 main nuclear facilities, and they were different levels of degradation. There was about enough material for weapons had been increased from 60% to 90% uranium. That was still deep buried under one of the facilities. We actually never got to it.
So perhaps untouched last year.
Precisely.
Yeah. All right, Alex, please just thank you very much. And the war is already impacting tomorrow's